All right, welcome back. We are 2 episodes deep into this. So again, I just want to say thank you for everyone that stumbled across the podcast and everything. I'm really excited about this episode as well. Sorry it took so long to get something back out again. But our guest here today, Kenzie, it was just a great episode with her. I shot this. I wanted to bring Kenzie onto the show because for anyone that is just interested in these two things, real estate or traveling, I thought that we spoke about a lot of really good things within this podcast that kind of might bring some more light and information to anyone that's curious about that. Again, these podcasts are for anyone. I mean, it's just put it on, have a listen, and enjoy it. But without further ado, here's Kenzie. Also, one last thing. So, as you all know, I'm still working on my editing skills and everything. During the podcast, we had some technical difficulties, so I edited a little bit of the audio. I got disconnected from Kenzie, but I made sure to reconnect and everything. So if you hear a little bit of a little jump in the clip, that is what it is. Like I said, my editing skills are slightly getting better, so. For everyone listening, our guest today is my friend Kenzie. Kenzie is currently, I'm going to say, one with nature outside in the wilderness. And we're going to find out more about where she's at. But I'll give Kenzie like a quick introduction. So I met Kenzie in college. We both went to Ohio State University. She was actually a close friend of mine's roommate. And so we became close friends, and it's just, I will tell you, everyone listening, like, Kenzie is an explorer. She's always on the go, and I love what she's doing, or she's doing, has done recently in her life ever since, like, we graduated from college. She's a couple things. So she's helped me out from a real estate perspective. She was actually my real estate agent for the purchases of my first 2 properties, which, Kenzie, I cannot thank you enough for. We will dive into that a little bit for sure. But she is also right now, in my opinion, just living her best life and traveling the world. And she's doing it very smart and very affordable. And I wanted to definitely, take the time for you, Kenzie, to share whatever you can, whatever you'd like to with whatever, the audience that stumbles across this and they're listening and they're just, wondering, how are you going to all these places, doing all these things, and you're not, breaking the bank? And if you are, we can still talk about that too. But I think you're doing it.
There's maybe a little bit of that.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that. But I think you're doing it in such a smart way. So without further ado, everyone, again, this is Kenzie. Kenzie, I want to thank you again for your time here. Before we, so first tell us all, where are you currently at? If we happen to hear any wind in the background or anything like that.
Yeah, so I'm just in a park right now in Fort Lauderdale. I'm very near the airport as well. I don't know if you can hear, there's an airplane going by at the moment. It's also quite windy. So yeah, there might be some sounds you're gonna have to tune out.
No, that's fine. And we'll get all the sounds, because I'll tell you, starting off this whole podcast series, I'm learning as I go. My editing skills are very minimal, and we'll see how they improve just across the journey. But we're going to give the listeners every single aspect of this. So, Fort Lauderdale, how did you... So, we just introduced the listeners. So, we met in Columbus. What are you doing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida?
That is kind of a long story. How am I in Fort Lauderdale? So... I wanted to get into yachting, and I don't know where that came from really, but I remember even when I was in college, I would tell Delaney about this all the time, that over the summer, I just wanted to, yacht for the summer.
Huh.
And so then this summer, because, I went to college, I got my real estate license, I was doing real estate for a few years, and I was not loving it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just took a hiatus at the beginning of last year and just decided to travel for a while. And it turned out that I was going to be in Croatia, and in Croatia they were offering an STCW course, which is the required course to work on yachts as a stewardess.
Mm-hmm. And you just Googled and researched all this. You're just how can Kenzie do it? How can I get myself into this?
I started following some people on like TikTok and YouTube, Instagram, whatever, who were in the industry.
Okay.
And they would make videos talking about like the requirements you need, what classes you need to take, what you need to do. And I knew that going in, like the only things I needed were, here's the point, were my FCCW and ENG1, which is just like a medical exam kind of.
Okay.
And I saw a post somewhere about an FCCW being offered in Croatia while I was already going to be in Europe. So I just found the dates for it, signed up for it, ended up getting my SCCW while I was in Croatia.
Wow.
And then just kind of through meeting people and talking to people, it seemed like Fort Lauderdale was kind of the place to be
to start
as
it
far
off.
as the U.S. goes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, I mean, I met a lot of people along the way that kind of guided me.
Okay.
And now I'm here.
So currently, from what I'm hearing, you're starting off, you're trying to start off, like wanting to do yachting in the U.S. and then like maybe transfer that overseas when you gain more experience.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can start wherever. I could have gone over to France or somewhere to try to start, but I just felt
listen to these places:
more comfortable.
France, Croatia. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Okay, so let's dive in a little bit to what you were saying, what you started with. So you were saying you started in real estate, but you weren't too like happy with that. So like I kind of want us to start off for the listeners. Just with that, right? So walk me. So real estate. Like, how did you find yourself in real estate? Like, what? Like, was it a family member or like how did Kenzie come across real estate to begin with?
Well, my dad is in construction, so and he has kind of always had investment properties, flipped houses, owned rental properties, and things like that. So I mean that realm was something that I was kind of familiar with. When I got into college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I went for business because I thought that was broad and I wanted it to be self-employed. So business seemed like the way to go. And then I met Dylan. Like our freshman year of college, I think, and he was a realtor, and he
great guy.
Kind of,
I really hope
talked me into going that route.
I really hope. Sorry to cut you off there. I hope for the listeners in the future, we're able to get Dylan to share some of his experiences, because I will tell everyone listening, Dylan is fantastic. He is just awesome. So, but keep going. You met Dylan.
No, yeah, Dylan is super, super great, and so he kind of pushed me in that direction, and I trusted him completely to guide me through all of that, and I'm super grateful for him, of course. But yeah, so then, and to get licensed, I think it took a month or two. I did it over the summer while I was in college.
What's the process of getting licensed to become an agent?
It's just a course that you do. You can do it in person or online. I forget, it took 1 or 2 months, and then you have an exam.
Oh.
And that is it.
See, I've thought about that for myself. For me, I look at myself as someone like tests and exams and like I don't want to bother with it, but I love the subject and content within real estate, and I know you've talked to me in the past, you're like, maybe you should become a broker or something. I'm like, right now I think I'm just looking at it from the investor perspective, but we'll see in the future. Definitely when that time comes, I'm going to be leaning on you, Dylan, so many of my other friends that dabble within real estate to see how Simone can definitely pass the exam and maybe become an agent or broker. But that's in the that's in the far distant future. So like,
yeah, I think you do well with it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a little bit, but I don't know about the stress. But I mean, like you were saying, like you found it within yourself that you didn't like the agent perspective. So so you got your license. For people listening that may be curious, about being an agent and just a process of buying a house and everything. So walk me through your first real estate transaction as an agent. Like, what is the process of you assisting someone to buy a house?
Assisting someone buying a house. Well, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you're qualified to buy the house.
Mm-hmm.
And that is usually the biggest issue. So working with lenders and getting approved, checking your credit, your debt ratios, income history, everything like that.
Where do you feel like people, is this where you feel like people stumble the most within the process? Just those beginning stages?
Yeah, and honestly, I found one of the biggest things was that people just don't have credit. Like, no credit whatsoever. And that's better than bad credit, I suppose. But, like, you can't buy a house with no credit. So, anyone who does not have credit needs to just go get a secured card, is what I told so many people. If you don't have credit, go get a secured card from the bank with a $500 limit or whatever, and pay it off consistently.
This is good.
To build some good credit.
This is good because I mean, right now we're in a time like, you know, economically that, like, you know, I think either the end of this year, 2023, or beginning of next year, 24. You know, there's gonna be a lot of people that are interested in looking into buying homes, and I mean, we're hearing it from someone that's been within the industry as to, you know, like, from your perspective, it's clients not having a good credit history or credit at all. That's like one of their biggest challenges. So if anyone listening, you're looking to buy a house, credit is very important. Lenders will not just give you random money saying, hey, I trust you with this. I trust you with this money if you have no credit history. So yeah, that's good advice there with that. You said, like, get a secured credit card.
Yeah, that's very important.
And so next in the process.
So then once you get approved, then, I mean, it's just about looking for houses and figuring out what you want, making sure you're in the right area. That was another thing. I think a lot of times people just didn't have clear ideas of what they wanted or where they wanted to be or why they were buying a house. You know, like, is it because you want to be closer to work? Is it because you need room for your family? You know, like, you need to know what you need out of a house before you start looking at houses.
For you as an agent, like, so besides the financial aspect, like, what do you wish that clients like do, or like what do you wish clients would do to make your life as an agent so much easier when it comes to the process of finding a house? Because, like, as an agent, I mean, like, you'll show clients, I mean, and they're a client, but you might not actually do a transaction with them, right? But I mean, you'll show a client like maybe 10 different properties.
Yeah. I wish they would all get off realtor.com.
Oh, that's my favorite website.
And Zillow, I know you do this. No, my phone's tripping.
No, you're good. You're good. Okay, so we're back. Okay, you were talking about how with Zillow, you don't like clients like on Zillow and realtor.com, but it's like,
yeah.
Why?
Because the information is outdated, and I would constantly have people sending me houses
like me
that they were interested in, and they were listings that expired months ago or were already closed or in contract or whatever. And I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but, like, I'm sending you all of the available properties that fit your criteria. And then also they'll send properties that, like, they like the looks of the property, but they didn't realize that it's 30 minutes outside of the area they said they wanted to be in. So, like, if you give me your search criteria and I have a clear idea of what you want, I can send you everything that is available that meets that criteria. Gotcha.
See, I think, and for maybe other people like myself that, you know, like, when they're looking for a house, like, they want to be just so active and involved in the process where, like, and I felt like I was doing this to you when we were looking for properties. I was just, like, bombarding you with, oh, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And I'm just out here this, like, yeah, like, a lot of it is just, like, the information can be so outdated to where you as the agent, it doesn't benefit you at all. And then you kind of just end up getting a client that's just like, well, why can't we see this? Why can't we see that? So you would advise people searching for houses, give your agent your criteria, everything you're looking for, and let them like, do that research, right? Get you that filtered list of, okay, these are the properties that fit what you're looking for. Let's go look at them. So you think, do you, I know you're speaking for yourself and your perspective, but do you think more agents will lean towards that than having clients, like, trying to shoot him off a whole bunch of, different properties that might potentially be like maybe wasting the agent's time, you think?
I think it kind of depends on the buyer also. Like for first time buyers, I think definitely leave it up to the agent more. But I mean, and it depends, like if it's an investor or, someone who has bought multiple properties, then they may know better. They may have a better idea of exactly what it is they're looking for, and they may be more successful at finding properties on their own. But I think first-time buyers is what I was primarily working with. And then I think it's better to just leave it to the agent a little bit more.
Okay, I hear that. I'm going to ask a question right now just specifically for, I'm putting myself in shoes of, let's say, the first-time buyers, someone that's listening to this, and they really want to buy a house. They're getting a lot of information now, and maybe I think the question that might be on their mind is, okay, when it comes to buying a house, it's all about money, and they hear about this word down payment. So for you, Kenzie, what would you, and I know your answer to this, it would vary, but like, what would you say for, let's say, someone in Ohio that's just wanting to buy their first home? Let's say they're around our age in their mid-20s. How much would you estimate, like, how much would you say, like, hey, you person, plan on just having at least X amount of dollars for a down payment just to make sure that you're comfortable, So for me, I mean, I would, so like, I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that does vary a lot depending on what your price range is. But I think a lot of people think your down payment needs to be a lot higher than it is. Like for a first time buy, your down payment is going to be between 3 and 5% of the property value. So I don't remember, but then there are also the closing costs and other fees associated, but you try to get those negotiated into the sale price. But I don't remember, what did you have to have on your first property? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. And you helped out tremendously for this when it came to like we negotiated on the closing costs. So if, like, for anyone listening that doesn't understand like really what closing costs is, I mean, when it comes to all the money that you're putting down for a house transaction, I mean, you have, your down payment, which Kenzie said, is 3 to 5% of the overall purchasing price of the property you're buying. But there's also money that is included, which is the closing cost, which is exactly what it sounds like, the cost to close, to, wrap up everything, the transaction, both parties, and put a little bow on it. And, that's usually, it can vary a couple thousand itself. But if you have a good real estate agent, like I did throughout my transactions, your agent can help you to negotiate that closing cost down, or even having the seller, the person that's selling you the house, pay for that closing cost. So for me, I think on my first property, Kenzie, that we were doing, the closing cost was about, the down payment I think was like $5,000, maybe somewhere in that ballpark. And we got it pretty nice because of, just like interest rates during that time being as low as they were and everything. But yeah, it was about $5,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, 5 to 8,000, I think, is a good place to start. But I mean, you can even get houses, and this is a whole other thing, but if you're buying a house in a rural area, you can, or if you're a veteran, you can get zero down. Like there are other ways around it, potentially. There are always ways to reduce costs, but it's not as expensive as people think it is a lot of the time.
That's important. Like, anyone listening, like, when it comes to houses, real estate, do not be afraid or scared off about price and cost, because, I mean, you're hearing it from Kenzie now. There's ways to go around and finding it to make it affordable to purchase a home. Like Kenzie just said, either veteran status, there's FHA loans for first-time home buyers through the government, assistance and aid. And there's ways to be smart and purchase a home in a cost-friendly way, believe it or not. So
yeah, I would say definitely if you're thinking about buying at any point within the next couple years, I would definitely just reach out to a lender and have them run your credit and see, because they'll be able to put a timeline together for you of what you need to do to get you ready to buy when you want to buy. So it's always better to speak to a lender sooner rather than later.
Okay. And I want to ask you next. So like we kind of talked about, like that process, buying the house and everything, kind of a little bit of the steps. So personal thing for you, right? When it comes to you and being an agent, like I want to ask you, like, what do you wish someone would have told you about being an agent before you became one? Because I know we started and you were saying, yeah, like right now, I mean, like you didn't like being an agent that much, or you kind of fell out of love with it. So like looking at your journey now, like, so I want to ask you, like, do you remember like roughly how many transactions you did prior to like all the traveling that you started doing?
How many transactions I did as a realtor?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Really not many. Maybe 10 or so.
Still like 10 transactions. That's impressive. That's impressive. Over the course of how long?
Well, I was licensed for a few years, but because I got licensed while I was in college, but then I kind of did it part-time for a while I was in college, and then I didn't really mess with it at all for about a year or so, and then I got back into it. So I was really in and out of it for about maybe 3 years or so.
That Kenzie, that's still impressive. In about a three-year span and at least about 10-ish, a little bit over transactions. I mean, I think you should be proud of yourself. I mean, I'm serious.
That is not sustainable, though. Like, if you are a real estate agent and you do 10 transactions over the course of 3 years, you are broke, no doubt.
Okay, so give some advice then on that. So that kind of goes back to that question. What do you wish someone would have told you about being an agent before you became one? Like, do you recommend that someone should like have a part-time job with it, or depending on like what they do?
I think really I got good information before I got into it. I just didn't really listen to it all. But I think the big things are that it is very time consuming. You can have another job alongside it, and I would recommend having another job along with it starting out, because it is, I don't know many brokerages that give you leads. Like, it is very much you working within your sphere of influence and networking and getting your own leads. And it takes several months to build up a client base. So while you're building that client base, I think it would be good to have another job. But yeah, it's really just a lot about networking and meeting people and
Okay.
reoccurring, or like working with clients that you've already worked for. Once you have a strong network, then it's a lot easier. It's just, getting started is time consuming, and it is very much a 24-hour job. It was for me. I think that was one of my biggest issues, was that I had a lot of trouble setting boundaries. Like, if a client texted me at 11 p.m., I would respond. Because that's how it is. You're working with people and they're trying to close deals. And if they have a question at any time of the day, they're going to reach out to you. And so if someone talks to me and has questions about their loan or something, then they want me to get a hold of the lender. And then I'm trying to get a hold of the lender at 10 p.m. on a Saturday, and the lender's not getting back with me. So I think my biggest issue was just being able to set boundaries and work within working hours. And that's why I kind of got overwhelmed with it.
No, that's good advice. I mean, just for anyone kind of just first starting off in it. So if you could go back, you'd kind of tell yourself a little bit of that as a fresh agent, setting boundaries and kind of like letting your clients know a little bit of that, not burning yourself out to answer text messages at maybe like 12 in the morning and everything.
Yeah, because sometimes it's things that can wait. You can even just message back and say, I'll get back to you at this time, like you don't need to spend hours trying to solve everyone's problems in the middle of the night.
Yeah. I mean, and that can be tough on one person. So, I mean, and I'll say to everyone listening, I mean, Kenzie, you did a phenomenal job for me. And like I said, I appreciate it, like the whole journey. I mean, I was a first time home buyer when we started the process, and I mean, you walked me through it, and there were some parts where, I mean, my heart's racing, and it's like, oh my gosh, this and that. It's like, oh my goodness, like I just want the house, and like you made sure I was calm, and it was overall a great experience. So I want to go a little bit. So you were talking about networking, and this is going to be a little bit of a transition to, you know, kind of like the traveling and everything that you've done recently. And you were talking about, just from an agent perspective, networking is everything. So you have traveled so many places recently. I think the last time we caught up was maybe it was before the holidays a little bit, so maybe like a month and a half, almost 2 months ago. But you had been traveling like crazy. So we're going to start diving a lot into this. So the question I have for you, just to start off with the travel, is like, what does having the ability to travel mean to you? Like, how did you make traveling affordable?
Well, I saved up a good amount of money. I moved home for a few months. I did several deals in a short amount of time, just to save up some money. And then as far as traveling affordably, the main thing I've done is, we've talked about this a bit, but just like volunteering while I'm traveling through. There's lots of different programs. I've used Woof and World Packers. There's also Workaway, and I'm sure others. But just being able to, well, I was in Europe recently. I was volunteering at hostels, so then my accommodation was free. And you could have people can definitely travel much cheaper than I traveled. I do not budget the best, but saving on accommodation was definitely huge.
So like what was the whole process like? So I mean, you're talking about these different platforms. We said Wolf, World Packer. Like, walk me through that. Like, one, how did you come across them? Like were you scared or nervous at all? Like, how did you like get into this world of volunteer work for travel and experiences?
It's just something that I came across because I've always wanted to travel. Like, my entire life, when anyone asked me what I wanted to do, like people were talking about colleges and what you want to do, my answer was always to travel. So I think I've always just kind of, it's been something I've been interested in. So I've followed people on social media, I guess, who do similar things. And at some point I just came across these work exchanges where you work in exchange for food or accommodation or whatever. And then so I started doing my own research on it and found a few platforms that I liked.
What was the first one that you did? So what was the first work exchange that you did? Talk me through that.
The first work exchange was through Woof. And that's Worldwide Opportunities in Organic Farming. So all of that is farm-based. And my first one was actually the only one that I've done through Woof, which was my first work exchange program, was in Maui at a taro farm.
Maui,
yes. What? And that was wonderful experience.
How long was that?
I planned on going there. Well, I planned on going for 2 weeks. I told my parents I was going to be gone for 2 weeks, but I bought a one-way ticket and ended up staying there for 2 months.
Wow. From 2 weeks to 2 months of Maui. Okay. Oh, you must have really loved your experience there.
I really loved it. Yeah, I've been back since. It was really great. What you got on the app or the platform, I mean, do they show you different opportunities? Like, what's the accommodations that you are going to be getting? Like, when you were in Maui, like, before going, did you know, like, okay, when I'm in Maui, I don't have to pay for living because I'm going to be working at this place and they're going to be providing my living? Like, is there also, do you get paid for your work? Like, what did you have to cover expense-wise during that? So it's all on the website, and like you have to register to be able to apply to jobs on the website, and I think they're like $40 a year. They're all around that price. But you can go on the website and look at opportunities without actually registering. So you can go on right now and look at World Packers and look at opportunities in Brazil and it will show you any type of opportunities in Brazil. But so when I went, it's like it'll say on the website what kind of accommodation you're going to be in, how many woofers are there, what they provide. It'll be a little bit of information about the different places. I was looking to be in Hawaii specifically, so I was just looking at farms in Hawaii, and I applied to a bunch of different places, and this ended up being the one that I heard back from and just seemed like a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked on the farm. I lived on the farm.
Like, what was that like?
My experience was really great. It's just hard to give like broad explanations about it because every farm is so different.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that I was on was really great. Like I had my own little, it was like a tiny house, just kind of my bedroom, and then the kitchen was in the main house. And the farm was like very much in the middle of the jungle, very far removed from everything.
Wow.
So I was there with the owner, one of his friends, and then another woofer. So we all just kind of did everything together. If we left the farm, we all left together. And there were days that we would just take off and we'd go into town, go to the beach, hang out.
What? That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I mean, yeah, all the farms are different. Some of them are more centrally located and you kind of go off and do your own thing. But that was my experience with it. So,
like, all right, so you started with Maui. Like, Maui was your first kind of adventure, right? So, like, I mean, just from how you describe like being at the farm, like this was an area that's like more like secluded and narrow, kind of like in the middle of the jungle. From what you thought, like, okay, so what things did you consider before like deciding to like travel to unknown parts of the world for you? Like because like you started in Maui and then like Europe was next, and you were just like all around there. So like for someone listening that's like, Kenzie, this sounds like fantastic, like I want to do this, but I'm like a little bit hesitant on like safety and being on my own in a random place. I mean, like what would you tell them? Like,
you have to just do it. I mean, as far as safety, yeah, you do want to vet the person. Like, make sure you talk to them on the phone and get a good feel for who they are. Honestly, before I went to Maui, my parents were very nervous about the situation. My dad called the police department down there.
Wow.
And asked, like, if there was any record of this guy that I was going to be staying with. There wasn't.
He called the police department.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you can do that.
That's a good dad. That's a good dad.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think, yeah, just and there are reviews. I personally I have never gone anywhere that didn't have reviews.
Smart.
So, and then there are reviews, and you can even reach out to the people who wrote the reviews and ask them more questions. So, yeah, I mean, of course, get all the information that you can to make sure that it's safe and it's somewhere that you're going to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, yeah, you kind of just have to go. I feel like once you buy the plane ticket, you're locked in, and then you're going. And if it's not working out, then you can leave. And
there's no penalty of that to you? Like you said, if it's not working out, you can leave. Like, do you know someone that's did that process, or did you do that process during any of your travels and stays? Yeah, there have been a few times where I left places earlier. Like, when I came on, I might have said, I was going to stay for a month, and then I left after 3 weeks because something else came up that I wanted to go do, or I wasn't comfortable where I was, or whatever. But just having that mindset also that, like, you're not locked into anything. You're not obligated to anyone or anything. If you get there and it's not what you expected, or you're not enjoying it, just get out. But also, make sure that you give it an effort. I mean, when I first got to Maui, I cried the first night I was there because I was like, where am I? What have I gotten myself into? Like, I'm in the middle of the jungle. What am I doing? Where's Tarzan? But it took me like a week to get comfortable and like understand everything that was going on where I was. But once I got my footing, then I loved it, and I ended up staying there way longer than I anticipated. So do give it some time to get comfortable and feel it out. But I mean, if your gut is telling you that this is just not it for you, then leave, You're not like held hostage at these places. Like they make it very good, easy to leave. So what was your okay? List off some of the places you visited through these different platforms.
I'm sorry, what, the places I visited?
Yeah, like where have you been?
So I was in Maui for a couple months, and then over the summer, I think, I left in June. I was in Europe for 4 months, and in that time, I worked at hostels in Switzerland, London, Croatia, and Montenegro. And then I did just some of my own traveling in Albania, Germany, Paris, Amsterdam.
Oh my god!
I think that's it.
See, that's like like Kenzie, like I'm listening to you just list off all those places, and I'm just like that. I'm mind blown because I love traveling. I think everyone should be able to experience, life outside their own backyard and see how someone might live their life somewhere else because the earth is huge, and we only have one life. Like, might as well see what you can see. But it's like, that's awesome. Like, you've been to all those places. You've shared experiences at all those places. Like, and when I heard you, like speaking about this, I was like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea like volunteering and staying at somewhere was like a thing, and it's possible to do it affordably. Like I was so interested about it, because like, if I was 18, maybe just graduated high school and maybe college, was something I was thinking about, but didn't want to do it right away and wanted to travel, like I think this is a very like great way to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a great way to travel. It's my preferred way to travel, honestly, because also I was traveling alone. And I mean, you can do it with other people, but I think a lot of the times people want to travel and it's hard to coordinate with friends or whoever you want to go with. Like everybody can get time off work and everybody's on the same page and where they want to go and what they want to do. So I really like solo traveling, and I think that the work exchanges are a really great way to do that because there are other people there. Like all the hostels I worked at, there were several other people there through the work exchange programs. So you have people there who are like built-in friends, kind of. Mm-hmm. And working at hostels, you meet so many people.
What was about the age range of the people that you met during your travels?
All over the place. As far as people working in the work exchanges, they were anywhere from maybe 19 to 30s. Okay. Somewhere in there. But I mean, if there were people staying at the hostels who were in their 60s, like, I mean, it's all age ranges.
Oh. You hear that, people? Don't feel like you're too young or too old. Well, you might be a little bit too young depending on like qualifications, 18 and up, but don't feel like you're too old and you can't still do this. It's always cost, and people are like, oh my gosh, but it's so expensive. So speaking of that, okay, like Kenzie, answer this question for me, right? Like, what was the most expensive part about your, like, being able to go from place to place to place? Like, do you feel like these platforms cover the housing expense for you for the most part? So, like, was just like what, finding plane fare, airfare, like, train fare, like, was that the most expensive part, like, or food? Like, talk to me a little bit about the, like, money.
Yeah, for me, the most expensive part was transportation, but that was also because I was not great at planning. I would buy tickets day of, a few days before.
About how much, like, U.S. dollars, like, were different tickets, planes and trains and taxis or whatever you took?
That depends. Like, a train I took one train from Paris to Amsterdam was like $100-some. But then when I was in Montenegro, I could take a train from Montenegro to Serbia, and I think it was like $12 or something. Wow. So, I mean, it does vary a lot. And you can get passes. Like, a lot of people I met had the EU rail passes or Interrail if you're living in Europe.
Okay.
But those passes help. I ended up getting a pass just to travel from Munich to Paris and then on to Amsterdam because the cost of the EU rail pass that I bought was cheaper than just the ticket from Paris to Amsterdam.
Oh, wow.
So and like when I was in Switzerland, there were different train passes that you could get that people had. So, I mean, there are more affordable ways to do things, planning in advance, buying flights, especially in advance. Flights within Europe could be like $12, $20 if you bought them in advance. So if you plan better than I did, it can be more affordable. And it wasn't terrible for me, but it could have been better.
For all those places that you visited, if you could like spitball, let's say an average cost of how much you think that, and I know it might be a tough question, how much you think that you spent, and maybe like so like in total duration, right? How long were you out of the U.S. traveling, like doing that? Like, and then we'll ask the question on the cost.
I think I was gone for 4 months and spent between $7,000 and $8,000.
Okay. And
so about $2,000 a month, a little less.
And then that's, so do you think most of your money went to food?
So, yeah. Well, transportation was my biggest cost. Food, though, I have no self-control. When
I mean, you're in random places, of course.
Oh my gosh. I was buying espressos every day. The hostel that I was working at offered 1 meal a day, and then I think 2 meals a day on weekends, and I hardly ever took advantage of that because I was just like out exploring, so I didn't want to come back to the hostel to eat, so then I would go buy food somewhere, and it was expensive. I would go to a cafe every morning and spend like $20 on breakfast.
No way.
Yes, like that's so unnecessary. You don't need to be doing that.
But Kenzie, I will tell you, when you are traveling, treat yourself within reason and budget.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, I felt like I could afford to do that, so I did. But I mean, it would have been better for me to save more money. And then also, like, just excursion type stuff, I guess. Like, I went paragliding in Switzerland. That was like $100 some, maybe $200. So, I mean, some of those things, like, they're expenses that can be avoided for sure. You can do it much cheaper than I did. Because with the volunteering, they cover all of your accommodations. And then if you just buy your own groceries, which is something I was not great about, and take advantage of any food offered at the hostels or wherever you are, you can definitely cut down costs tremendously.
So your time, you're like 4 to 5 months, abroad, like what has your networking looked like? I mean, like, cause I bet you've met some pretty like amazing people, and I hope you found ways to maybe like stay in touch with some of these people. Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I met a lot of people, and I mean, really just like Instagram. I follow everybody on Instagram. But yeah, I met a lot of cool people, and it's cool. Like, I met, my first place that I volunteered at was in Switzerland, and I met a guy there who was just a guest there, and then I kind of talked to him about the work exchange that I was doing, and then he is planning on traveling for like 5 years. He has his whole next 5 years planned out. And then so he actually got into, I think he signed up to World Packers as well, and then I was volunteering at a hostel in Croatia a few months later, and he reached out and was like, can I get a spot there? So then I brought him in, and he started working there. So, I mean, it is cool. Like, you meet a lot of people. There were some people that I saw them in, like, Montenegro, and then I was seeing them in Albania.
Traveling buddies.
Yeah, like, a lot of people, you just kind of, it's a lot of word of mouth. Like, a lot of the places that I ended up going were places that I had no interest in going. When I went to Europe, my only plans were, I had my initial stay in Switzerland booked, and then this STCW course in Croatia. Wow. And I was kind of in contact with a hostel in Croatia where I thought I might do an exchange after my SDCW program. But there were a lot of blanks. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do between Switzerland and Croatia. I didn't know what I was going to do after Croatia. And so a lot of it is just meeting people, and then they tell you where they've been and really cool things that they did. And then you kind of base your travels around that. And then so people end up kind of hearing the same things and going the same ways and doing the same things. So you run into people again.
So
and it's really cool, yeah.
A lot of what you're talking about, I mean, like, it sounds like it takes a lot of planning, but from your perspective, in your case, I mean, you're saying you didn't do a lot of planning. And do you think you had a better experience, like, give or take, kind of because of that? Because you left a lot of it to, well, let's see what the world brings me next. Do you think, like, over planning for these, you know, abroad trips, do they kind of take a little bit of the exploring out of it?
Yeah, I would say don't over plan, because your plans are going to change so many times. Like, you may go somewhere and have a plan to go somewhere else after that, but then you meet people and you're like, oh, actually it would be a really good idea to do this. And so I just never wanted to be locked into anything in case my plans changed, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's
and
fair.
I think it's better that way. Like, I went to Albania. I was hiking in Albania, and that was something like I never had any plans of doing whatsoever. I literally met someone on the bus to Albania, and they're like, oh, we're doing this hike. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds fun. And then so the next day I went and did that hike. It was like a 3-day thing.
I'm hoping you were updating your parents like every step of the way through this, or were you just like, no, mom and dad, I'm just gonna check in with you like once a month?
Yeah, definitely not as much as they would have liked. I know my mom was getting irritated with me. But I tried to check in, but I know I was not very good about it.
I'm so happy for you, like, being able to, like, have this experience, Kenzie, because I remember when we were in college, like, I mean, we would talk and you would just tell me how much, like, you just wanted to like, drop everything and just go, like, just backpack, just adventure. And when I heard that you were doing this and you did it, I was like, she is indeed living her best life. Like, and it gave me goosebumps. I was like, I want everyone that I know to, like, hear about this, because, I mean, I talk to a lot of older people, and, you know, everyone has regrets, right? And I feel like you're living your life, Kenzie, in a way where you're like, I don't want to look back and say, man, I wish I would have done that. Wish I would have done that. Like, I wish I would have taken that opportunity, but I didn't. And, like, you're so fearless. Like,
No, there is some fear involved. I mean, that is my goal. I just feel like I want to experience everything that I can with the time that I have here, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, it is scary for sure to go across the country by yourself and not know anyone. But I think this has just taught me that, like, once you're in the situation, you figure it out. Like, you have no option but to figure it out. You don't have anything to fall back on. Like, you figure it out or you go home, you know? So I think once if you decide this is something you want to do, you just need to go do it, and you'll figure it out as you go.
That is life coach advice.
It's scary sometimes, but you just gotta go.
That's life coach advice. So where is Kenzie heading next? Like, what's the next adventure upon the horizon? Let us know.
That's a good question. So I'm in Fort Lauderdale now. I just moved down here like 2 days ago. And yeah, I'm trying to get into yachting now. So I'm in crew housing because the way it works is a lot of times they don't want you to apply to jobs. Like, a lot of the jobs are out of Fort Lauderdale or Miami or West Palm. And so they don't want you to apply to the jobs unless you're here, because that shows that you're serious about it and you're just close by, you know? So I moved down here without a job. I'm living in crew housing.
Whoa! What is crew housing? Just like the housing for what people that want to do yachting? Like, what's crew housing?
It's just people in the industry. Like, the house that I'm at is like with a couple other stews, a captain. Like, I mean, it's just anyone in the industry lives in these houses between jobs. And you just rent them out weekly. So low commitment, you know.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I'm here now.
Fort Lauderdale.
I am trying to find work.
What I remember, is there a specific country you're trying to get to? So I know right now it's yachting, and you want to take your little sailboat. You want to take your little yacht all around the world. Where, like, what on your, like, is there a place that's on your bucket list? You're like, I want to go here and explore what they have to offer.
There are tons of those. As far as yachting goes, I'm really just going to go wherever the opportunities are. I'd like to get to the Bahamas. That's my main goal right now. But as far as travel in total, I have a list of like 50 places on my phone of places that I want to go.
No, that's what I call planning.
Egypt is a major one. I definitely want to go Egypt.
Why Egypt? Why is Egypt a major one?
I don't know. I think it's the history, because I think I've always been super into history, and I think that has kind of fueled my interest in travel. And the history of Egypt is so interesting to me. So I think that's maybe kind of pulling me there. I really want to go to Egypt. Southeast Asia has been, when I was in high school, I always talked about going to Southeast Asia. I thought that was going to be my first ever backpacking trip, and I still have not gotten there. So I really want to do Southeast Asia, Iceland. I'd like to go to Alaska, too. I haven't been to Alaska.
Oh, my gosh.
Even, like, out west, I'd like to do a trip through Glacier, Yellowstone, and on into Banff in Canada, because I think I realized when I was younger, I always just wanted to go abroad, you know, and then being abroad, I feel like I kind of realized how beautiful the States are and all of the parks and natural beauty that we have, and so I'd like to do some more exploring of that as well.
So Kenzie, you speak about all this beauty and just everything the world has to offer. So for someone listening and they're like, oh my goodness, she sounds amazing, her story is just, I want to make sure I can follow her every step of the way. Like, are you putting your experiences out anywhere? Like, are you like documenting, taking pictures? Like if you are, let us know. Like, how can people like keep following your stories, or like how are you logging all of this?
Yeah, I think Instagram is what I use most.
Okay. So it's
what was that?
So I was going to ask also, so, you know, so if someone listening to this wants to like connect more with you, or they have questions, you know, after hearing all this about, you know, the different platforms that you're using to travel, like how could they reach you if you're comfortable like sharing some information? Like how can someone like either get access to you on social media and like ask questions and things of that, like of that nature?
Yeah, I would say just message me on Instagram. I don't even what my Instagram is. I don't even remember.
I will include it in the show notes. For anyone, yeah. So Instagram is the best way to contact Kenzie, and also like, I mean, for anyone that listens to this and you know, wants and comments in the comment section of whatever platform that they're listening to this from. Like, Kenzie's a great friend of mine, and I want to engage with as many listeners as possible that, you know, like that appreciate the content that I'm putting out with the people that I know. I will like 100% like follow up any questions that you have and like kind of relay them to Kenzie and get answers for you about, you know, her travels and everything she's doing, because I'm telling you, this girl's doing some phenomenal stuff. You know, it's not everyone. Yeah, no, it's not everyone that wakes up and says, I want to travel the world. I'm going to find out how to do it, and I'm going to live my best life. You know, like I feel like so many people that I know, and myself included currently, I mean, like, we live this consistent routine life, which, you know, it's wake up, go to work, come back home, wake up, go to work, come back home. And it's like, truly, I don't believe that's what life is about. And I'm doing a lot of things right now in my life to help me to get out of that cadence as soon as possible, so I can start doing things like exactly what you're doing, Kenzie, which is living your best life to the fullest. And I love that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time today, especially being outside in the elements with all your planes and everything that's happening around you in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, I hope that wasn't too irritating, because I'm hearing planes going by about every 10 minutes.
No, I don't. I know. I don't think the audio is bad at all. And like I said, I think the listeners will definitely enjoy everything that you've had to share today. So, Kenzie, I wish you the absolute best. I wish you safe travels wherever you go. Please update your social media when you can. Post as many pictures as you can, because I think you're bringing out the beauty within the world that you're seeing. And I think for people that aren't able to take the journey to take that step now, at least they can feel like they're doing it with you as you are posting on social media. So I highly encourage you to find ways to keep documenting and sharing what you're doing. And I invite you to always, come back and kind of check in with us and like let us know what you're learning and maybe how things are different around the world, and more advice that you can offer anyone. So I mean, you shared a lot with us today about real estate and traveling, and I just think those are two things that people our age are curious about, interested about. I mean, from the real estate perspective, it's just financial wealth, freedom, owning property, and traveling. It's, oh my gosh, who doesn't want to travel? You know what I mean? Who doesn't want to travel?
Yeah.
So
everybody should. Thank
you. I think that is fantastic advice. So, Kenzie, again, thank you so much. Best of luck with the yachting, and hopefully, I'm hoping you find work soon. I will try to see, if how much we can push this out to different listeners. If there's anyone that is listening and knows anything about yachting and Kenzie's current location, Fort Lauderdale, and can share anything to assist in helping her, keep traveling and keep going, that would be greatly appreciated. Watch you just get flooded with help.
That would be wonderful. That's exactly what I need right now.
Well, again, Kenzie.
Well, thank you, Simone.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you for being a guest and just for your time here today overall. So I appreciate you.
Lovely talking to you always.
Thank you. Take care, and we will chat again very, very soon.
Yes, okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.